Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe. Really do appreciate all of the support. Make sure that, by the way, you go and check out my top 5 girls and top 5 boys in Savannah basketball. Dropped those yesterday. Started getting some traction late night. I'm assuming students don't check Twitter early. They check Twitter later in the day, later in the evening time. It's also up on my YouTube channel. It's up on my Facebook page. Make sure that you check that out. Really am proud of those young men and women. Lots of talent here in Savannah, and I want to make sure that my reach is used to try to shine light on others. To all of those guys and all of those girls that didn't make the 5, doesn't mean you're not good. It just means there was only 5. That's what makes it mean more. And to all of those young ladies and young men that made it, look out! I'm going to find you. I got something for you. So that'll be cool as well. One of the things that I was really, thinking about yesterday, I was recording our Zebra Stripes podcast with my guy, Coach Witt, and we were talking about coaching hires in the NCAA. For long it's been that every time you see coaches being hired in college basketball, there seems to be a lot of white guys being hired. And I get it, numbers say there's going to be more, but when you have a sport like basketball that is so heavily minority, you would think that you would see more coaches. And it struck me as odd because I'm starting to realize, no, there's a ton of black coaches in basketball. There's a ton of black coaches in college basketball. They're just not getting the same opportunities as their white counterparts, as their white contemporaries. And the jobs that they end up taking tend to be harder jobs to win at. For instance, the University of Florida hires a coach, and Coach White. Coach White decides he's going to move on to Georgia. Some would argue that he beat the mob out, because I think there was going to be some pressure on him going into this next year. And they hired a coach from San Francisco who's, in my opinion, is another guy who is seemingly like White. Now, from what I've been told and what I was told by Coach Witt, who knows he's in the know with that thing, he's an analytics guy, and maybe they wanted to skew more that way, but those analytics didn't rise San Francisco to the top of their respective conference. It didn't allow them to be able to compete with Gonzaga. Those games were blowouts. So he was able to get the bump up from San Francisco to a premier program. Now, some people might say, well, Florida's not necessarily a premier basketball program, but here's what we do know about Florida. If you get it popping at Florida, Florida wins national championships in every sport, right? So to get the job at the University of Florida, you don't leave the University of Florida job for another job in the NCAA. You leave the University of Florida job for an NBA job. That's how it goes. So we see these things all the time. And so I'm looking through the coaching hires, and it's white guy, black guy. But the black guy gets Kansas State, which isn't a bad program, but it's going to be hard to win consistently at Kansas State. Bruce Weber couldn't do it. Frank Martin couldn't do it. Like, it's going to be hard to win consistently at Kansas State. And therefore, you're either going to have to move on or you're going to get fired. So that's a tough job to take. It's a tough job to take, but that's the job we're given. Black man hired at Louisville, but he was an alumni who spent years and years in the trenches. And Louisville's dealing with some scandal. So it's not like he's taking over a ready-to-go program. He's taking over a program. He's going to have to do some work in order to get back to the level that we expect Louisville basketball to be at, to the level that coaches before him were able to get it to. That's not going to be easy. That's a tough job to come into. You see what I'm saying? Like when we look at some of the guys who are getting the jobs that are plug and play jobs, right? Those jobs where, hey, I just need to come in and I can get it popping immediately. You know, those aren't normally going to the brothers. And so I look at that and go, man, what can we do to help? Like, but there's really nothing that can be done to help it because those coaches exist. They're out there. They're coaching. Those guys are on college staffs as the number one or the number two assistant. They are the head coaches at lower level, low major programs. They're already coaching at those places, but they're not getting the bump up to the big time school when they have a 1 or 2 year good run at the MAAC or some of these other programs. They're going from a low major to a mid major, and not a low major to a premier mid major. They're going from a low major to a rebuild mid major. They're going from one HBCU to another HBCU. They're not getting the bump up to the premier job, the one where, hey, you don't have to work as hard, or you don't have to work as hard to recruit, or you don't have to work as hard because you've got the resources. They're not getting those jobs. And because they're not getting those jobs, it remains very difficult for them to have the same level of success. Because success comes with opportunity, right? Success comes with preparation, opportunity, resources. Period. End. If you don't have opportunity, then you're not going to have success. If you get the opportunity and you don't have the resources, then you're not going to have success. If you get the opportunity and you have the resources, but you're not prepared, you're not going to have success. It takes the convergence of all three of those things in order to be successful. So when we look at these things and we see how that goes, and we see what some of the white contemporary coaches get an opportunity to do versus their black counterparts, man, it's tough. But beyond all that, and this is where I'm extremely torn, right? This is where this is where I guess in a certain light, I'm contradicting myself. I'm not sure. But the University of South Carolina, right? The University of South Carolina, they do a thing. They get rid of Frank Martin as the head basketball coach. And I didn't necessarily believe that Frank Martin should be fired. Like, it's South Carolina, so it takes some time to build up. You got to give him an opportunity to navigate and then go in the right direction, correct? But okay, you did it, that's fine. So now South Carolina decides that they're going to hire a new coach, and they hire Chattanooga's Lamont Paris. Lamont Paris, a black man. It's a great opportunity for a black man to get a job. It's an SEC school. You can win at South Carolina if you recruit correctly. You can make some runs, right? So it's a great opportunity. I have nothing against Lamont Paris, but I don't like the hire. I don't like the hire because South Carolina back in October approved Dawn Staley for a 7-year, $22.5 million contract, making her the highest paid black head coach in women's basketball, the highest paid college women's basketball coach in the country, right? It's record breaking. It's ground shaking. It's history. But you know what would have been better history? If South Carolina had hired Dawn Staley to be their head coach. Now, before people stop me and go, oh, they've been doing it for publicity reasons. Oh, well, it'd have been a publicity stunt if they hired Dawn Staley as their head coach. I'm like, I know. No, it would not have been publicity. It wouldn't have been a publicity stunt. And here's why it would not have been a publicity stunt. Because Dawn Staley can coach. Oh, well, the guys are not going to respect her because, listen, most of the basketball coaches that are in the top level of the NCAA were not real basketball players. They were not legitimate hoopers. They were not guys who everybody went, oh my gosh. There's only one Juwan Howard rolling around college basketball at the major level. He's the only one that people look at and go, yo, that dude was a baller. Now, there might be other guys around, but the Juwan Howard's the only one that's going to resonate as a legitimate baller. Guess who's the other one? Dawn Staley. Dawn Staley wasn't just a basketball player. She's probably the greatest basketball player in Virginia history. She's one of the greatest to ever do it at the professional level. Yet, with no offense to Sue Bird, who was able to do it for a longer period of time because she came along when USA basketball was really starting to like take form and become what it is. But Dawn Staley is a better point guard than Sue Bird was. Sorry. So when she walks into the room full of these 3, 4, and 5-star men, she would be immediately respected. Why? Because she has game and because she can coach. And because she already has a relationship with South Carolina, that could calm down a lot of the circus that would come with this. This wouldn't be South Carolina saying, oh, we're just trying to get publicity. This would be South Carolina saying, hey, listen, we went and reached out to the best coach that we could get that knows and understands our landscape and our climate. And that's why we hired Dawn Staley. Somebody somewhere has to be the first. And when things line up like this, when there's an easy opportunity to make this happen, for it not to happen is an indictment on the university and the system. Again, I will support Lamont Paris to no end. I hope he has all the success at South Carolina. I'm not really mad at South Carolina. But they missed the boat. They missed the landing. Everything else was great. The flight was great. The food was good. No turbulence. You overshot the landing, people. It was right there for you. You didn't even have to change your contract. You could have just moved it over, maybe put a couple more M's on it. But it was right there. Well, who's to say Dawn Staley even wanted to coach the men? She might have known that. No, because this moment would have been too big. It would have been too big to pass up. It would have been too monumental to pass up. It would have been too much for her to say, I don't want to do that. Dawn Staley at that point would have had a responsibility to women everywhere to take that job, because she would have had to stand and break the barrier. Because once that first one comes through, that's when the rest are allowed to come through the door. We know that's how it works. It shouldn't work that way, but we know that's how it works. Once the first one is allowed to pass through, that's when the rest come through. And so all of those people that are afraid to take the opportunity to put a woman as the head of their organization in college basketball, South Carolina could have been the beacon. Imagine that. South Carolina, a place that hasn't really been known for its diversity, right? To not only have a woman as their head basketball coach, but to have a black woman as their head basketball coach. They could have checked off so many boxes. And Dawn Staley would have walked into South Carolina with the immediate respect. She would have left South Carolina's women's team with her staff, who's already set and ready to continue on that tradition when she decides she no longer wants to be there. She could have moved over to the men's side, and she could have put together another staff to be able to combat the things of the men's game that she may not be familiar with, like, you know, going out and recruiting the men. She's been on the women's circuits. She may not know the men. Guess what? There's a ton of coaches that are out there that would want to be a part of that movement. Everything was lined up. They ran down the lane. They hit the triple axle, the spinning, the locating. You missed the landing. And now we're sitting here with Lamont Paris, and Coach Paris has to go in there and do the job. And I hope he's successful. But it will never make the impact that Dawn Staley would have made if you would have named her the head coach. Somebody's got to be the first to do it. We've got to get this cowardice out of here. Whether you can coach, you can coach. There's so many guys who are walking around coaching basketball who have never played any meaningful basketball in their life. There are guys who are getting high-level jobs who've never played any meaningful basketball in their life. And you're telling me that Dawn Staley wouldn't be able to do that? We all know the answer is false, right? We all know that. So it is incumbent upon us to keep bringing these things to light until somebody makes the right decision. Because Dawn Staley's not alone. She's not the only one out there that could do the job as a woman. This just happened to be the perfect situation. And we fumbled it. Because that's what we do as men. Perfect situation, everything's like we want it to be, we find a way to screw it up. That's just in men's DNA. Let's find a way to mess it up. Because the obvious answer right in front of us is too easy for us to take. Let's find some convoluted answer. It's a shame. It's a shame. Talk about like overshadowing what has been a fantastic NCAA tournament. If they would have made that higher, nobody would have been talking about the tournament. As it is, we all get ready for Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you join me on the YouTube channel, make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe. If you're joining me on Facebook, make sure that you are following. Catch me on any social media at Gene Clemens, and make sure that you check out that Zebra Stripes podcast, available on Spotify. Till next time, peace.